Thanks very much. Good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly? For those of you escaping the room, I'm sorry that I chased you away. Well, thank you very much for joining us here. And today I'm going to talk about cybersecurity, and I think you're going to find this really interesting. So the first thing I don't want to do is I don't want to scare you. I'm pretty sure I will. But I'm here to educate you, and I'm trying to give you an understanding of what's going on in your life that you might not be aware of. So with regards to cybersecurity, that's anything digital. So anything that you've got that you might be carrying around with you, something like this little computer. Does anyone here not have a phone? So I can spy on all of you. That's fantastic. Thank you. So it's really easy to track you using one of these. So do you guys have Apple phones? Anyone? Anyone? I want us to be a little bit interactive. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Thank you. That's great. People are starting to put up their hands. So I'm going to pick on my favorite friend, Craig, here. And he's got an Apple phone. So guess who Apple's biggest customer is? Take a guess. Google. That's right. Fantastic. 10 points. To Rachel in the corner. So we are keeping points. So basically, Google spend tons of money with Apple. And guess why they do that? Why do they pay that money? How much money do they spend with Apple, by the way? Anyone? There we go. Rachel, you're cool. She knows all the figures, so I'll stand this side here near the ladies. So Rachel said $9 billion. I could hear a whisper. $9 billion they spend with Google every year. Why do you think that happens? Anyone? Yes? Information. So data. So what Google is after is your data. So when you're traveling from St. Juan to St. Helier and you're sitting in the traffic, or you're coming down St. Saviour's Hill, like I was doing this morning, for 10 minutes I sat there and Google told me that I'm going to be delayed. How does it know it? Every single iPhone's reporting back to Google. That's why your battery doesn't last long. That's another scam, but we'll get onto that later. So that's how they get you to buy new phones every year. All right, so these little computers are collecting all this information and it's feeding it back to the cloud. What's the cloud? Anyone? Other people's computers? That's it. Online storage, that's it. And you're putting all this information in a public network. How cool is that? For who to get access to? Everyone else. Fantastic. So now everyone has access to your data. Now, this is going to become really interesting because I travel around the world and I do these type of talks. Normally it's about 3,000 people. And a lot of the people there are asking me questions. So please be interactive. If you have a question, instead of phasing it on Slido, put up your hand and ask it, and I'm being happy to answer the question. With 20 years experience, right here, right now, you can ask, is the Wi-Fi at Gatwick really safe? Right? And the answer is it isn't. Not at all, especially if I'm there. Right, so be very careful what you do on public Wi-Fi. Now, the reason I'm painting this picture, it's not all doom and gloom. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but sometimes I feel like a samurai stuck in the tunnel just slashing the zombies and the bodies are piling up. And I don't see the light because there's so many attacks and attack vectors coming from all directions in this world that we're in, the cyber world, that makes it really hard to keep on top of things. So one of the things that I need to tell you about is you need to partner up with organizations like Zuri, like Andy's company, TSG. And the reason for that is because these people have taken security really, really seriously. And if you don't take it seriously and if you don't interweave security, cybersecurity into the fabric of what you're doing, you're in a lot of trouble. Because a lot of the time, security is an afterthought of what people are doing. So they bolt it on. So you guys know what happens if you bolt something on after the fact, right? You don't build it from the ground up. I'll tell you what happens. I've got a granite house out in St. Martin somewhere in the middle of a field. I'm not giving you the address. You have to look it up. But this house has no foundation. It also doesn't have any damp proofing. And that's what I'm talking about in cybersecurity. You have to build it from the ground up. So without the damp proofing, what happens? Granite is a porous rock. It sucks the liquid from the ground when it rains, makes the walls wet. So in cybersecurity, your foundation is really important. And what the guys at Zuri have done is they've been very smart. From the beginning, they've built encryption into the platform. Now, encryption holds up one of the pillars of security. Can anyone tell me what that pillar is? Come on, Arthur. Do you know? There we go. Confidentiality. So I'm picking on crowd members that I know, so I'm just seeing who else I know. Oh, I see Mark at the back there. So, hello, Mark. So slowly, confidentiality, right? Keeping data confidential, very important. One of the 3 pillars of cybersecurity. Right, so let me go back to my story that I was painting. You've got at least 10 devices in your home. Does anyone disagree with that? 10 smart devices? Do you think that's too little, too few, too many? Too few? This gentleman here, I know who he is. He's got everything electronic, so he's got lots of them. But for example, at my home, I've got 120 devices, right? And I'm a bit extreme. My wife always says, you just want to buy toys from Amazon, and it's true. I do want to buy toys from Amazon, and they're always arriving. So yesterday, DHL delivered a new Htc Vive, the second one. And this has got something called LiDAR. What LiDAR does, it's a camera that spins, and it can actually watch people in the house, so you can do virtual reality. Sounds cool? Yeah? Possible? It's exactly what it does. Right, does anyone know what one of these is? Yes? This guy knows everything. Fantastic. Sorry? It's like a switch. So can anyone read in the front? Can you say what that is? Wi-Fi pineapple. This is $100 worth of equipment. I'll just unpack it. I'll do a live unboxing. And as I take it out, you can see how easy it is to connect this little aerial. And you just twist it, and you do that 4 times, and you've got 4 aerials. And there's a power pack with it. Do you guys know how to plug a power pack in? Yeah? Not trying to be condescending, just showing how easy it is. And when you connect it, you take this USB port, and you connect it to your laptop. And after you connect it to your laptop, what do you think this box does? So it's very easy to set up, just like your home router. Yes, sir? It sets up a network. So with all technology, you can use it for good and evil. That's the evil. I can use it for good, but I can use it for evil. I didn't turn it on today for various reasons. There's friends in this room that I don't want to harm. Some of you I don't know. And a hacker that doesn't know the people, they don't care about them, but there's a lot of people I care about. What this device does is it can set up the access point that you use at home so your device connects to that without knowing the name of your access point at home. So my name's Ricky, and my device at home is called Roselle Tower 2. Now you know where I live. Leave me alone. But basically what that Roselle Tower 2 will do is it will tell my phone to just connect to Roselle Tower 2, which is my home Wi-Fi. And I challenge you to connect to it. What happens then is my device starts sending traffic through Roselle Tower 2 up to Google, up to Facebook, and authentication tokens. And if you don't connect your device to my little friend over here, I can send something called a deauth. And what the deauth does is it deauthenticates your devices from anything it's already connected to. Guess how much that little device costs? Now, it's built into that one, but if I had to buy that on eBay, how much do you think that little device that deauths you all the time costs? Take a guess. $20, that's close, $9.99. So for $9.99 with no skill at all, you turn this thing on, it's just a little USB device like this, and you choose the size of your aerial. That's something they allow you to do. The bigger the aerial, the longer the range. And you can see the size of this little aerial here. It's not small. It means it covers the whole hotel. And once you've been deauthed, you've connected to my little friend, and I have your data. Even if you encrypt it using SSL. Because on this machine is something called SSL strip. And what SSL strip does is it strips the standard internet encryption that's out there today that we all trust, that we use to do internet banking. Pretty scary, right? I can see some people hiding under the table. Arthur, don't be scared. He's just shaking his head. He says, no, I'm not scared. Okay, cool. So what I'm basically trying to tell you is knowledge is power. You need to know this type of information. You need to know what you're buying. And there is some good news at the end of the story. Basically, what happens is, if you buy the cheapest Chinese piece of technology on Amazon or eBay, what will happen is, and I call it the cheapest Chinese technology because we all want stuff cheap and quick. If you do that, those pieces of technology haven't followed certain standards. And those certain standards keep you safe. So for example, if you buy a Philips Hue light, which is made by Philips in Holland, and you buy a cheap Chinese device, it might not have the same level of security. I'm not saying they're all secure, and I'm not saying they're all insecure. What I'm saying to you is be very careful what you buy and what you put into your home. So I'm just going to give you an example of what I've got at home, and you can relate this to health. And there is a health story here somewhere, and I'll get to it in a second. Basically, I have a vacuum cleaner at home, like a little Roomba that comes out the skirties and goes and vacuums the house. Additional to that, I've got a little lawnmower that mows the lawn that would normally take me 10 hours a week to mow. It's a big lawn. I've also got lights everywhere. So if I switch on my phone, you can go and take a look at all the lights I've got. There's a few things I don't have, and I'm a technologist. I don't have a lock that's digital that you can remotely control, and I don't have a CCTV camera. And guess why? Yes, sir.
So people can't get into them?
Pretty much. Pretty much. So there's companies like Yale, August, and many, many others that make these digital locks. And they talk a little protocol called Z-Wave or Zigbee. There's two of them, very common in this world of IoT. And these devices can be remotely controlled by you mostly. But if the access control isn't set up correctly, it can be controlled by others. So I do a lot of these talks, and I went to see someone locally, and the lady afterwards was really, really worried and concerned. And she came to me and she said, Ricky, I've got this camera that I use as a baby monitor. And I said, oh, is it bidirectional? Who makes it? She says, it's Motorola. I said, I know the model. It's a little black one about that big. And she said, yes. And I said, did you know that I can watch you in your nightie? And she looked at me and she said, what? And I said, yeah. And actually, I can watch you whenever you're in that room, whatever you're doing. And she said, show me. So all I did was I went onto a website. I'm not going to give you the name. Went on, wrote the address, so Jersey, basically. And all the cameras that were in Jersey just popped up on this website. Just like that. No authentication. Zero. Basically, it just shows you all the cameras in Jersey from that model, make and model of that camera. Now, I can see people squirming in their chairs. You should be uncomfortable because this is a problem. You need to make sure that that access control is right, tied down. Right, so be careful what you do with these things. So there's, like I said, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So one of the things that's knowledge. You need to know how to connect these devices, really critical and important. So these devices need to be connected in a secure way. And what the guys at Dury have done is they've taken that responsibility onto them. So when they connect the solution, they go through an API. So that's really good because that means that it's done in the right way. So quite a critical element, especially in the healthcare world. Now, the thing that excites me the most about IoT and all of these devices is exactly healthcare. Because I think it could be used for the good of humankind, not for the bad of humankind. And what that means is that all these devices that are being interconnected, the data that's collected, if it's collected by the right people for the right reasons, then it can be used for the right things. So one of the things I'm very excited about is the new Apple Watch. And the reason for that is because yesterday I was speaking to a very, very smart guy. He's a doctor. He's sitting right next to me, so I was careful what I was eating at dinner. He's like watching every move. Like I took a chocolate, he'd like, clever guy. But what he told me was falls are important in medical care. So he was talking about falling. He said fall is the number one thing he wants to know about. Guess what Apple have done? They've built the fall detection into the device. So if someone falls, it immediately sends an SOS after a period of time. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's very useful. And the Zuri platform supports that type of alert. Pretty cool. Right, so I think that's a very useful thing. Now let me just take you back into the dark world of cyber. So there's some researchers that I'm very aware of, and I work with those guys. So we work with all sorts of guys. There's black hats and white hats. Black hats are the bad guys, white hats are the good guys, gray hats are the guys that are kind of in between. Can't decide where they need to be. The reason for that is cyber is very profitable. Okay, the cyber world is very, very profitable. Anyway, this like grey hat that I know, he's designed a system that sends a little signal through the speaker of your phone. So you install this app that you think is Angry Birds or something like that. You've been tricked. WhatsApp, that's a good one. You've all got WhatsApp, don't you? So it installs like a fake WhatsApp, and it sends a little sound through the speaker of your phone, and then on the microphone it picks it up. And what it's doing is actually using sonar to track your finger on the phone, and it sees exactly what you're typing. We map that back to a keyboard, and we can take your PIN. If you're Kanye West, we don't really need to know your PIN because you show it to the rest of the world when you're talking to Donald Trump. It's 00000, by the way. Really secure. But if you're not Kanye West and you're worried about what you're typing on the phone, we could just use that mechanism, like the bats use to find the walls and the insects, to figure out what you're typing on your phone. Pretty sneaky, right? So you've got to see these things and understand that the digital world has good and bad. And there's a lot to consider here. Take a guess how many devices are connected inside an airport today. Let's take Dubai Airport, for example. Take just a guess, the project I've just recently been a consultant on. Anyone? Wild guess. 10,000? Go up? No, too high? 100,000, you're getting close. Half that, 46,000 devices, all connected. How many lifts do you think Dubai Airport have? Anyone? 751 lifts. Yeah? Guess what? All those lifts are remotely controllable. And guess what? Not difficult to do. So I was in Las Vegas once upon a time, and I was sitting there, and there's this dude with a ponytail with like the Mandela t-shirt, you know, the big shirt with all the colors. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's giggling, and he's sitting outside this lift. It's at the Palazzo, if you know what that is. Anyway, if you've been to Vegas, you'll know. And he's sitting there giggling, and I said, dude, what are you doing? And I could hear people screaming in the lifts. He had locked them in the lift, and he was taking them up, but then back down. Right, sounds funny. Not to the people in the lift. And what he was doing is you can change the speed of the lift. Now, all lifts, by the way, are set to a specific speed, so you don't get that feeling in your stomach. And if you change it, you get the feeling in your stomach. And if you lock the door so they can't get out, then you really get the feeling in your stomach. This stuff can be used all the time, right? Pretty scary. And this is at something called Black Hat. You can imagine what that's all about. So a lot of people that hack stuff, they sit there. And one of the things, the theme for that oh, what was that? Somebody's been hacked. So one of the themes for that day in Vegas was about lighting. And lighting is particularly critical. And guess why? Through a light, which is just a network computer, a little device running an operating system made by somebody, could be a Chinese company. And when they make that little light, what happens is you can jump on the light, and the light's connected to the network, and then you've got access to everything. So one of the famous things that we've done recently is we did a penetration test, which is just ethical people trying to break into a company by just hacking into things. And a company that I work very closely with in Birmingham, what they did was they used the boardroom television to break into the company. So the boardroom television, which is the television they display everything to their board members, they turn the camera on, they record the whole board meeting, and they presented that board meeting as proof that they got into the network and also access to the network here in Jersey. Pretty cool. Now again, very scary, so you just need to know some basic fundamental principles. First principle, confidentiality. So what Arthur was saying, encrypt, make sure you're keeping things confidential. Second principle, you need to trust stuff. If you want to trust stuff, you need to use something called integrity. You need to make sure that there's integrity in this stuff. So one very good control for integrity is make sure your stuff's backed up. With the Zuri platform, that's what these guys do. And they work with Andy as well. And Andy makes sure that the reports are all tickety-boo. So very important that you've got those processes in place. The last thing that I think is very critical is availability to data. Imagine you go to a doctor and they don't know what pills to give you. I mean, that would be pretty crazy, right? But there's been certain circumstances in the NHS, which is an organization I work with across in the UK, where this little worm, it's a piece of software a worm is basically a piece of software that can interact with computers without user interaction. So it doesn't need a user to trigger it. And what this worm did, it was called WannaCry, because your WannaCry once it infects you. And once it infects this machine, it encrypts the data, and they lost availability. Now, there's all these horror stories about people not getting heart transplants and all that stuff. In actual fact, no one focused on the good stuff, because that's not what the news does. But there's a lot of interesting things. But some of the NHS trusts that were affected, it actually just shut down systems, and you couldn't get access to the data. So really critical that when you choose a system, you choose something like Azure platform that's highly available. So if the data were to be locked out, you could get access to the data through other means. Right, so very interesting stuff. I'm sure you're all now wondering, oh, what's going on? I see some people holding their heads, others like this, people hands over their mouth. Any questions that you may have? Anyone? Come on, Arthur. Yes, go ahead.
Wasn't that vulnerability in the NHS due to them using Windows XP?
It wasn't due to Windows XP. That's Microsoft trying to sell you more software. And I used to work there. It was due to software not being patched. So because Windows XP cannot be patched anymore because it's out of support, Windows XP was affected. Let's put it this way, I can secure Windows XP so that WannaCry doesn't hit it. So no, I would say that's Microsoft trying to scare you to buy new software. So you move to an operating system no one wants called Windows 10. Does anyone want Windows 10? I don't. I'm forced to use it. Any other questions? Please, go ahead.
What are app stores doing to help credit software to stop these sort of apps coming down that can do this sort of stuff?
Okay, so the question was, for those of you that didn't hear, what are app stores doing to basically check the software to stop this type of thing? So it depends where you come from. If you come from the Apple store, they're pretty strict. I can't even get my app launched on there, and it's an ethical app. It's difficult to do, and when it does get launched, it's months later, because they check it very thoroughly. If you go to the Google world, the dark side, it's too open sourcey, too fluffy. No one checks this stuff. So you've got crypto miners and all sorts of nonsense. They are trying to clamp it down, but Google traditionally have done this in an open fashion, where Apple, these are the two biggest ones in the world, where Apple have done it in a very solid fashion and making sure that the data, specifically the application, the software development lifecycle is checked, and you can't access areas of the operating system that you typically would. So basically, safe. Now, it's not 100% safe. So for those of you that think you're safe because you use Apple, think again. Nothing is safe. So if you, let me put it to you in very simple terms. If you're not safe, if you don't practice safe practices, you can use the safest platform in the world. You can't code for stupid. I'm not trying to say it in a bad way. I'm just trying to tell you that people can be really silly. So I'll tell you how silly I was. Last week, I went to an ATM at 5 Oaks, put my PIN in, took a phone call, put £500 in, pressed enter, and I walked away. Left the money at the ATM. Got in the car, and I thought, oh crap. Turned around, money was gone. I was stupid. So I go back, the teller says, oh my gosh. Go to the police go, oh my gosh, I thought you were in security. But you're human, right? You're human. So we can do really stupid things, and we do those with our mobile phones, we do those with our computers. Do you guys like clicking on links? I know my kids do, they love it. It's like their habit, their hobby, link clicking. Anyone here click on links recently? Yeah, pretty dangerous stuff, right? What you're doing is practicing unsafe click linking. Link clicking, whatever you want to call it. So every time you click that link, what does that do? It takes you to a universal resource locator. That universal resource locator could be an application. I can completely own you. That's Hacker Talk for take over your computer by you clicking a link. If you open a PowerPoint presentation, just hovering your mouse over the PowerPoint presentation, there's a particular vulnerability that just runs code. Even in Outlook, believe it or not. So this stuff is all quite serious. So people said to me, oh, only when you click it? No, not anymore. Even if you don't click it. Check out the PowerPoint presentation vulnerability, released last year. Just hover your mouse over that. Pretty nasty stuff. So you've got to be really, really safe. Be careful what you click on, what you don't click on, what you hover your mouse on. Be very careful how you operate this. So First piece of advice, if you're using a computer for something like internet banking, make sure you use that computer for internet banking, not to play Angry Birds or other nonsense like that. Use an iPad. If you use an Android device, be very careful because those apps could have infected that device. So that's, I think, what you were trying to get on at. Android is a wonderful, wonderful technology, full of possibilities, but very open. So you know what open means, right? Sorry, there was another question. Yes, Andrew.
So Ricky, I'm now really very scared.
Okay.
Security of my data. How can we start putting the controls and layers back on the top to make sure everything's going to be safe?
Right.
Particularly in the context of health data, which is particularly sensitive.
Right, so the question was, I'm really scared. You shouldn't be. Now you know. So I've just taken the torch and put it under the bed and you've seen the monster. And he's this big. He's not that scary, but thank you. And he said, Andrew asked, what should I now do to protect this data? So the first thing is access control. So access control goes together with confidentiality. So you need to provide proper access control. So let me give you a basic example of access control. On your phone, do not make your password 00000. Do not Kanye me, please, because we will own you. So what you need to do is make the password a little bit more complicated. And by the way, passwords are crap. Try not to use them. So I don't know how else to describe that, but passwords are terrible things. You forget them, you write them down, you share them with people. Try and use biometric if your phone supports it, or your computer, or your device. That's known as biometric authentication. The better your type of authentication, the more secure you're going to be. So there's one piece of authentication that if you haven't done yet, when you leave the room, please go and try and do this. It's called two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication solves at least 33% of your cybersecurity worries. Why? Because that one password now is dynamic. So if I do record it, so if I'm sitting behind Cheryl on an aeroplane on the way to Scotland, which could happen, and I watch her type her password, Zuri123, that's not a password, by the way, but let's say it was, because she loves Zuri. She might put an exclamation mark on the end like all of you do, right? You know who you are. Right, so when you put that exclamation mark on the end and I record that password, the next time I just replay that password. Username, Cheryl, K, password, 0123, exclamation mark. Now, if she's got two-factor on her system, I can't replay that password even if I see it. Even if her password is Z for Zorro and Zuri. If it's a Z and she's got two-factor, doesn't matter because that password's dynamic. You've already used two-factor. If you haven't used two-factor, put up your hand. 2, 3, 4 people in the whole room, 5. So if you're not using two-factor for your internet banking, you need to change bank now. Because your internet banking should give you a little token that with a number that keeps changing. That is a form of two-factor. And that little number that keeps changing, that number will keep you safer. It doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you safer. Because where there's a will, there's a way. What man can make, man can break. Okay, so that's the first thing, access control. Next thing is crypto, encrypt. Very easy. I'll give you all free licenses of the product I built if you want. It encrypts data. It encrypts files, it encrypts folders, it encrypts emails. It's called Galaxy. You can download the software, send an email to support, tell them you were at this conference and you get a free license. 12 months free use. So I've solved that problem. That's confidentiality. Integrity, make a backup. Who doesn't have a backup of their kids' photos? Come on, you know who you are. I know you're embarrassed. You don't want to put up your hand. It's cool. Backups, very important. Computing 101. Make a backup of your data so when WannaCry comes and wipes all of the NHS's information, you can restore from backup. If you can restore from backup, then you can do many things. Firstly, you can see if a copy of the data was changed. If it was changed and you restore from backup, it should equal that same version. So you know that data is what it should have been. The other thing is you can put the data back how it came. So backups are really important. And the last thing is availability. Have a backup plan so that your data is available and stays available. So for those of you in the cloud, guys, we're on an island. Right? So if a ship one day during the Most Connected Island Awards in London takes an anchor and goes around the island and pulls all of those fiber cables away, and we're no longer connected to the internet, the cloud's not going to save you. So you need an available system. You need a system that's available and you can connect to. And you need a backup to that system. So availability, integrity, confidentiality, and access control. On top of all of that, you need to overlay stuff like the Zuri guys have done. The people, you need to teach them. Education, what we're doing right now. This is actually, you've been educated. You didn't even know it. Rachel got 100 points. You got 2 points. Craig, thank you. Well done. But basically, the education, security awareness training, educating people about cybersecurity. So you now know about some of the threats. You can go away and think about this and start thinking, oh, I need to do something about this. People, processes, put processes in place that you can run through. The technology comes last. I'm sorry for you technologists in the room. The technology needs to fit into everything. So rather than start with the technology and fit everything around it, get all of the other stuff ready and then use the technology to basically prop you up. So it's been real, it's been fun. Any other questions, guys? Anything else? You don't want to ask me about Gatwick Airport Wi-Fi like I normally get that question, no? Well, thank you very, very much. It's been really good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.